In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at the upcoming pattern where we have multiple intense Arctic blasts on the way. These are going to bring cold fronts with them that will obviously feature quite a bit of storminess. We do expect there to be quite a bit of an uptick in activity overall. In addition to that, we also need to talk about Hurricane Melissa, which has gone ahead and strikes Jamaica as a intense, potentially historic Category 5 hurricane. It has been completely devastating. I've been seeing a lot of videos all day today. Just terrible, terrible situation in Jamaica. And looking at the satellite imagery, this is a super, super interesting one. We can't even see Jamaica. You can kind of see it in the eye right there for a second as it comes on shore. But watch how the mountainous island of Jamaica just tears this storm apart. It is truly a battle. The storm does a lot of damage to Jamaica, but Jamaica does a lot of damage to the storm as well. And we can see that eye kind of just like cave in on itself. It looks like a toilet flushing or something. It's really crazy, that effect where it just kind of gets reeled in to the middle there. Really, really fascinating, and it is down likely to a Category 4. It was intensifying right up until it hit, so it was at literally max intensity right as it struck Jamaica. But those very tall mountains in Jamaica have gone ahead and, again, kind of just lowered the intensity of this storm through time. We do still expect this one. We can't really see Cuba either. They're already getting some storminess from this. But we do expect this storm to be a Category 4 or perhaps 3 as it strikes into the eastern regions of Cuba. As time goes on, we can see Bermuda is going to be close to getting impacted with between a Category 2 or 1 hurricane, something in there. So even though they're not expecting the extreme major hurricane impacts, this is still likely to be an impactful storm for Bermuda as well down the road. And this would be happening at some point late on the 30th, earlier on the 31st, sometime there overnight on the 30th to 31st. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening around the nation real quickly before we dive into the model guidance. And as we just take a look around the nation, we can see quite a bit of activity in a couple of different areas. We do have some passing showers up here for the northwest, most particularly Washington State. We do see this frontal boundary and multiple lows here across the central states here. So we can see from Minnesota and North Dakota southward all the way through the Midwest and plains, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, experiencing precipitation from this area of a major frontal boundary. We can see mostly showery activity on the more northern and even middle portions of this. But as we kind of just zoom in and we get our daily emojis there, we can see that areas in East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, southern Arkansas are experiencing more of a thunderstorm storm mode as a whole, especially there in eastern Texas right now, where we even have likely a mesoscale discussion here for a potential severe weather watch. We're looking at a 60% chance of them issuing that. That's as of a few hours before you're watching this, but we can see areas probably in Houston being more and more impacted as time goes on. That is going to cross over mostly into Louisiana later on and eventually through Mississippi. The heavier stuff definitely to the south here. The only other real thing to discuss is we did have this coastal low that we've been discussing for a few days offshore of the southeast, and it has been a rainy, windy mess here for parts of South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, up into the Delmarva. Even some heavier pockets of rainfall like you can see here, more so over northeastern North Carolina between Rocky Mountain and the Elizabeth City area. We do have this heavier area kind of set up, and this does look to elevate towards maybe parts of southeastern Virginia as time goes on, as it's generally moving kind of northeasterly here, as you can see. We'll see what happens with that, but some heavier, messier stuff happening in here, and again, it's been quite windy at times as well. Let's go ahead and move into the model guidance, though. And as we take a look here at the European model, we're going to get to see how all of this stuff evolves, and we can kind of see that this frame looks quite similar to what we were just looking at. As we move towards tomorrow afternoon, we do see more storminess here over the northwest, now Washington, Idaho, Montana mostly. For the higher elevations, we are seeing snowfall happening, but the lower elevations are obviously rainfall. Most of your southeastern coastal storm is broken up by this point, and it's more centered around this low that has been moving across the southern portions of the nation. And we do see, again, more showery activity up here for states like Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia there. But we do still likely see a pocket of those more thunderstorms for eastern Alabama, areas of Georgia, South Carolina, and the panhandle of Florida as we're moving into tomorrow, Wednesday the 29th. Moving even further forward towards Thursday on the 30th here, we see that this low, if we were to kind of just track where it's moving, it does something like this, and then ends up somewhere between Pennsylvania and Ohio here. What this does, in turn, is there is a little bit of a warm front impact happening, so we get more warmer air rushing up the East Coast with much cooler air rushing in behind, so an interesting dynamic to say the least. More so showery and straight rainfall impacts happening in these areas, I would suspect, by this point, as opposed to thunderstorm activity. Out west, we do see this warmth building for the West Coast, and this is going to really aid in allowing this Arctic air to roll in behind that low. This warmth is sort of saying, nope, you've got to head somewhere else with all that. So that's why it kind of gets shifted eastward and forced into areas further, what we would call downstream. Looking towards Friday on the 31st, this is when we're full-blown in this cooler pattern. This is also Halloween. Warmer, milder air really taking over for the west. A free flow of much cooler air is present for the central and eastern states here. Also a quite strong low over the northeast, as this is kind of like the remnants of the hurricane by this point. So heavier rainfall for the northeast, mid-Atlantic, eastern Canada. And this is the remnants of the hurricane. I don't suspect that we will have much in the way of tropical impacts from this one. It might just be a really bad coastal storm as far as heavy rain and wind. But, don't let that freak you out. We don't expect a major hurricane or anything crazy to hit these regions. It just happens to be the remnants. It is a 980, which is a quite strong storm, so expect something more along the lines potentially of what you would expect from a nor'easter for these areas, which they are obviously very familiar with. Saturday on the 1st of November is going to be a very fitting day for the first day of November, as we have quite a bit of cold air very present here throughout a lot of your more central states and into areas there for the mid-Atlantic and northeast, with again still that milder column of air set up over the west, really blocking things from really heading into the west. They're just forced to the east. Sunday on the 2nd of November here, we see this milder pattern is stretching further to the east. We still have a bit of a trough in the east, but it's not quite as intense by the time we're reaching the end of this upcoming weekend, Sunday on the 2nd. We do have a lot of activity down here near the Gulf and Bahamas. We'll be watching for any of this impacting the United States, or perhaps maybe tropical development, although I'm a little skeptical at this point, given the kind of surface pattern we're expecting. Monday the 3rd is a much flatter jet stream, more so just across the northern states. It is, in theory, a little cooler in the east than it is in the west, but it's not a very extreme pattern at all by this time frame. By the 4th, we see, again, a kind of lack of storminess. The most active area actually is the northwest here by this point on Tuesday the 4th. As we keep going towards Wednesday the 5th, we also by this time see a major storm system arriving for the northwest. And once again, this will be a case where we're looking at mostly rainfall, but for those extreme elevations, you will likely be seeing some snowfall as a result. Thursday on the 6th is when things start to get interesting. We get some lower pressure going here throughout the north central states. We do see a low there for South Carolina. And this is very likely to develop a warm front, cold front complex and pull in some more of our cold air that we're expecting down the road. And we do see that happening by the time we're reaching Friday the 7th, where this low intensifies greatly, 986 here over the Great Lakes. A cold front underneath, a bit of a warm front dynamic here. So it's a little bit milder out ahead of this low. But we certainly have another case where that Arctic air is really pouring in behind that cold front and wants to enter into the central and eastern states. And then we have that warmer, milder column over the west again, which we call a positive PNA. And a lot of the times that warmer column of air in the west is going to just encourage all of what's happening in the east on this frame to occur. That is your overall dynamics that we're seeing. And as we go on, look at that intense cold front, guys. This is a really high precipitation cold front that this model is suggesting. Might be a very intense one. I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw a really short-lived, maybe one-day period of quite mild air, 65, for some areas, 70. Wouldn't surprise me along the East Coast as this cold front is approaching because of the intense push of warm air ahead of the low. And then that cold front comes and sweeps through, and for the southern half of the East Coast, that might mean thunderstorm chances and even severe weather chances. But as you can see, we really get that push of cold air right afterwards. It's relatively short-lived, and then we get another similar cold front rolling through, another high precipitation event. And in general, this is a little faster paced than we originally saw in the models, at least according to today's model runs. And a lot of this is happening in the long range, so take it with a grain of salt. But a faster paced pattern with more back and forth happening in a shorter period of time would very likely result in more precipitation. So if you happen to be in an area that is needing a lot of precipitation, you're certainly cheering for this solution, the very up and down, because you're going to be seeing a lot more storm systems rolling through in between those air masses. And we see a lot of that here. And as a result of it, I mean, we get a lot of precipitation, especially in this particular area, deeper south, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast here really, really flourishing. Also the Northwest, not really different than what we've been seeing, but they are also doing quite nicely here. Precipitation anomalies. Again, you've got a really healthy strip of above average precipitation because of that back and forth consistently happening. And the Northwest has been above average for a long time on the models, to say the least. Now, as we go ahead and take a look at the total snowfall, a little bit unlike yesterday, we do see a lot more out west, more similar to what we would expect typically. And then in the eastern areas, we're seeing a lot less than yesterday's model runs, but I do expect quite a bit of back and forth, and time will tell with all that. Not that it really pertained to populated areas. I mean, for the most part, this is just mountaintop locations and national parks and all that, at least in the east. The west is seeing an uptick, which is nice for their early season skiing season that is going on. The temperatures on the European model is a little less intense, I'm not going to lie. We see this cool down around Halloween, and that lasts well into the 3rd, 4th, 5th, with mostly cooler temperatures. But we do see, again, look at that. Look at that intense area of warmth for maybe half a day. You're looking at like a 12-hour period of temperatures that are 10, 15, 20 degrees above normal here along the east. Again, it wouldn't surprise me to see 60s and 70s way up the East Coast. But look at what's heading in right behind it. That intense push of cold air that moves in really rapidly. And that sudden change, you could certainly see some out-of-season thunderstorms for weird areas like the Mid-Atlantic or Northeast or Southeast. Wouldn't surprise me one bit with this type of an extreme change in temperature like that, especially when it's really mild out ahead and then we see the cold, dry air just slam into it. That's kind of a red flag for potential thunderstorm activity. And then we get a similar setup, that East Coast warming up again right at the end of the model run before this cooler air moves right back in again. So again, you're getting a lot more back and forth there. And I didn't really go over the dates properly, so from now till like the 3rd or 4th of November, we look quite a bit cooler. So we're looking at almost a week of those cooler temperatures. And then right around the 10-day mark is when we get that really warm column. Maybe this is 11 days out. So again, this is quite far out. I do expect some more back and forth. And don't be surprised if we move back into something that looks just more consistently cold than this and less of that back and forth. But we get that slam right around the 8th there. And then the 9th is when the cooler air is fully there. Then we get another warm up for about the 11th, 12th, and it looks like the 13th, 14th would be cooler again. Now the GFS model's temperatures here, we get cooler all the way through again into the 3rd here, 4th, 5th. But look, we just stay cooler. 7th, 8th. We do get that little warm push there right around the 8th. So this is actually pretty similar to the European model before we get a really intense cold front, more cooler air, and then we get another warm push at the end. So these are kind of in sync, I'm not going to lie. But don't be surprised if we still see some changes. Even though they've been changing together, we still have quite a ways to go. I am going to be curious to see how this pattern turns out, though. So be sure to subscribe because we upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.